Well, good morning, everyone. And as we kind of get things going here on Monday morning, I wanted to show you the last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation through 7 a.m. Central Time. Of course, the big feature we watched over the weekend was the low that stalled here over parts of Texas and finally moved out on Saturday into Sunday, and this morning still sits over parts of New England. This map again showing the last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation. And we did see this low deliver quite a bit of rainfall to some drier parts of the eastern Corn Belt. Of course, it moved through parts of the southern plains, delivering some rain to parts of the the eastern side of the hard red winter wheat belt. But down farther to the south, some very heavy rainfall came out of this system. But one of the bigger problems with it was the snowfall forecast that was bust right in through here. The depth of this trough and its position actually delivered more of that snow into parts of New Mexico and western Texas versus farther into the Panhandle. Now, where we're going with this pattern, it's going to remain very, very active over the coming days and possibly weeks. And we're going to watch by tomorrow morning two separate low-pressure systems form. One will be up here in the Canadian Prairie, moving out of Saskatchewan into Manitoba over Lake Winnipeg here. And there'll be a second one down here emerging in the southern plains. And this is the one I'm very concerned about, this one in the southern plains, because if we just take a look at the setup, let's step up in the atmosphere. We're going to be seeing a relatively strong low-level jet developing here. And it's going to draw on deep moisture coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. And then the winds over the top of this are going to be relatively strong. That's 500 millibar winds, and here's the 250 millibar winds. So we end up developing surface winds that come up like this, low-level winds that come across like that, and upper-level winds that come across like this. And as a result, that's a highly sheared environment. And in this particular case, the Storm Prediction Center has been on top of this for about 5 days now. And their newest update for tomorrow on Tuesday night is that there is now a moderate risk in the lower Mississippi River Valley for severe storms. And they do, in their discussion, discuss the possibility of long track and very strong tornadoes in this particular situation. Now, if we go right into the models and kind of see where this is going to emerge, let's go to the high-res NAM first. The upper-level trough that's going to make this all happen is currently passing through the Pacific Northwest this morning. And the first wave is already ejected into Saskatchewan and into Manitoba. In fact, I got to fly to Saskatoon tonight, so we'll have to see how these stronger winds and snows affect some of the flight schedules. But what we're going to be watching here for is the second low right here to emerge into parts of Kansas in the overnight hours tonight into early tomorrow. This is going to spread snow from Wyoming and Colorado. We'll look at the snowfall totals in a second here. But through Nebraska, parts of Iowa, South Dakota, and Minnesota, there might possibly even be the chance for some overrunning and some light ice accumulation. But what I'm concerned about is throughout the day on Tuesday, this is now Tuesday midday, getting into Tuesday evening, the models are developing numerous discrete supercells in that highly sheared high cape environment for this time of year that's out ahead of the front. And the front is it's pretty far back. It's way back here and doesn't move through parts of the Midwest until late in the evening on Tuesday. So we're going to watch for the potential for quite a bit of severe weather in this area. So if you're watching here, please make sure that you're staying tuned to weather.gov, your local National Weather Service offices, to keep ahead of this. Well, that front clears through and some very strong northerly winds come behind it. And that's going to set up a pretty volatile temperature pattern this week. And as that front moves, notice that almost the entirety of the East Coast is going to be able to pick up some precipitation out of this, including on Wednesday, the risk of some stronger storms here. So that's just system number one as it pulls through New England, delivering rain over to the Carolinas all the way down to Florida. High pressure builds in, but behind that, we do have another system that's moving into the northwest, and it's going to be one that could deliver some snow into parts of Washington, very heavy rain following the I-5 corridor here, and then eventually this system, as it digs farther to the south, will really set us up for another big go of it later on this week. So let's go have a look at this. First of all, I would like to show you how much snow the models are predicting this morning through, let's just go all the way through Thursday evening. So there will be a corridor in through here of 2 to 5 inches of 2 to 5 inches of snow, but the heaviest snowfall amounts will likely be stretching from northern Iowa through parts of Minnesota south of the Twin Cities into northern Wisconsin. Of course, that snow originates in the Rocky Mountains here of Colorado. This is a textbook Colorado low, one that goes just like this. But if I show you where this all goes beyond that, take a look at the upper level height pattern. We see that through Wednesday and Thursday of this week, we develop, again, that cross-polar ridging. Do you see it from Scandinavia into the Bering Sea? And this just lets troughs of low pressure kind of orbit around a deeper trough over the Canadian archipelago. And this just sets us up for, one, building regions of deep, cold air, and two, letting them out. Now, what we're really concerned about going forward, in addition to the deeper troughs that keep coming into the western part of North America, is that by the time we get into that first full week of December, the models are attempting to build this ridge that's going to move up over Greenland. That's part of what we call the negative phase of the North Atlantic Oscillation. That tends to let cold air that's here move out. It could also really set things up to be very active in the eastern part of the United States for storm systems. So now it's the cross-polar blocking. Soon it will be the Greenland blocking. And what this means is that the jet stream is highly amplified right now, which gives us a very difficult forecast. So let's go ahead and just take a look at the European model, which will stretch us out there 10 days. So we've already discussed these first two systems, this one and this one, spreading the snow here and the severe weather. Here it is on Tuesday evening into the overnight hours. That's the low that spreads all the rain to the east and brings the strong winds behind it. Keep an eye on this one. This is now 12 p.m. Wednesday during the day into Wednesday night, getting into Thursday. Notice how that one pulls farther to the south, even sets up kind of this temporary atmospheric river event into California. And that low spreads through the Great Basin and ejects into the plains by this weekend. Now, where it eventually ejects, does it come down and then emerge into Wyoming? Is it farther to the south? And do we get more storms to the south of it? That's all a possibility. We don't yet fully know how much snow is going to be out of this as well, given that the particular kind of trajectory of this low is not fully resolved in the models just yet. But it will dive to the south and eventually emerge. I'll just rock back and forth. This is Friday, getting into Saturday. So keep an eye across the northern tier of the U.S. for that, and also the chance for some stronger storms late this week and this weekend along the tail end of this front. Now notice there is another system on Saturday pulling into the west, and that one too has the chance of coming out. And reason why they're coming in from this direction is because of the big ridge in the Bering Sea. That's that cross-polar block. So it just sends systems that roll across the United States just like this. So very active pattern setting up over the next 7 to 10 days. I wanted to show you how much snow we are expecting in the Northwest and throughout the mountains in California. I'll just park this out here at a week. And with these next three systems coming through, not only heavy rains will be in the I-5 corridor, 1 to 3 inches, but possibility in the Cascades of picking up 2 to 3 feet. And here in the Sierra Nevadas and the Klamath Mountains, the same snowfall totals. That also extends into the Intermountain West here in the Northern Rockies. Okay, from here, let's also now go look at total accumulated precipitation. Because as I play this out through Wednesday and Thursday, that's system number 1. System number 2 is diving down into the west, and then it ejects late this week into the weekend into the northern plains. But as you examine this map closely, what you notice is that the drought issues we've been seeing in the plains just seem to continue. The total precipitation amounts here are considerably less than we are seeing on the western and eastern side of these next few systems. If we just look at who has the best chance at picking up an inch of rain, well, it's primarily going to be over the Ohio River Valley into the Tennessee Valley back into the Mid-South. That's going to help with the Mississippi water levels. We can also see that a lot of moisture is pouring into the west right now, given the trajectory of those lows sinking out of the Gulf of Alaska. But if I flip this map over to show you the probability of getting less than a half inch, we now see that much of the plains really miss out on decent moisture return, kind of further pushing down the road the risk of the drought expansion in the plains as we go into the month of December. Now, I told you the temperature pattern is going to be volatile, so take a look. Here's Monday's highs. Getting into Tuesday, remember this is out ahead of that big low that's curling up here in the Central Plains. So very warm conditions out ahead of it, and then it's quickly replaced by much colder air behind that front. But the pattern opens back up Thursday and Friday for the next low. Remember the one that's coming down the west coast. And now we're starting to see some evidence of where we're tapping into the really cold air that's building over the western Canadian prairie and western Canada that at times going into December will be let out across the northern tier of the United States. But the more mild conditions that we see here are largely because the deepest troughs are anchored over the northwest. That just allows more warm air advection in the midsection and eastern part of the United States. But I don't want you to get too used to that, because over the next 5 to 10 days, okay, big ridge builds in here. Where does the cold air go? It has to sit in this area. And if a big ridge builds into Greenland, that cold air is going to get let out. So through the beginning of December, the coldest air will be anchored in the Canadian prairie into the northern plains. But the newest forecast getting us out there to like the 10th of December are letting a lot of that cold air come out as the heat builds here into Greenland. That's an important part of this forecast pattern. The last couple things I want to cover in tonight's in-depth analysis, which I will be releasing very late. I don't get into Saskatoon until about 1 a.m., so it'll be a very late report tonight. But we will be talking about what's going on with the polar vortex. I think it's time to start that discussion in earnest. We're starting to see some connections between the stratospheric polar vortex and the tropospheric polar vortex. It is currently disrupted and weaker. We also need to spend some time talking about drought issues in Brazil. This has kind of crept up on us a little bit here. We saw drier conditions here in like western Mato Grosso and western Mato Grosso do Sul. But I think the drought here, given the forecast over the next 10 days, may continue to get worse. We do see dry conditions and very hot conditions coming into Argentina as well, which means South America at this point is kind of struggling here with getting moisture to a broad sector of their agriculture productive area. We're going to talk about all of it again tonight, plus the latest outlook for La Nina and some of the things we're watching shift around there. And we'll also ask the question as to how long this very active North American pattern sticks around. So, hey, I appreciate you giving me some days off last week on Thursday and Friday. We got back into it today. Look forward to talking to you again in the morning. Thanks.